You may not realize it yet, but the heaviness you carry, the quiet pressure that lingers even in moments of calm, is not coming from what's happening around you. It's not from the unfinished tasks, the conversations left unsaid, or even the challenges of today. Beneath it all, there's something deeper, a weight you've been holding for years, perhaps without even knowing it. It is the past, or rather, your belief in it. Most people walk through life convinced that their struggles stem from what has already been lived. A heartbreak that left cracks too deep to heal. A betrayal that shattered trust so completely that even now, you flinch at closeness. A decision made years ago that feels like it split your life into before and after. We replay these events like they're carved into the fabric of who we are. We say to ourselves, if only that hadn't happened, I'd finally be free. If only I could go back and change that, I could finally breathe. But here's the truth almost no one tells you. It is not the events themselves that bind you. It is your continued belief in them. The past is not a living, breathing thing. It does not follow you like a shadow, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It does not whisper in your ear or dictate your choices by force. It is inert, powerless, entirely gone, unless you choose to bring it into this moment by remembering, by retelling, by reliving. What we call our past is not a solid history. It is a mental construct, a story we've stitched together from fragments, revisited so many times that it feels like undeniable truth. Stop and really consider this. When you recall something from years ago, a moment so painful it still tugs at your chest, where is that event right now? Not 10 years ago, not in the abstract place we call the past. Right now, as you read these words and breathe in this moment, where does that event exist? Only in your mind, and the mind is not a camera. It does not store memories as flawless, unaltered snapshots. Each time you revisit a memory, you are not simply watching it, you are reshaping it. You bring your current emotions, your present fears, your beliefs about who you are, and you weave them into the image. Details shift, meanings deepen or distort. What you remember is not what happened. It's what your mind has reconstructed to fit the narrative you've decided to hold about yourself. And yet, we cling to these stories, even the ones that hurt, even the ones that poison the present moment. Why? Because we think they tell us who we are. I am the person who was betrayed. That's why I keep people at a distance. I am the one who failed when it mattered most. That's why I play small now, why I don't risk. I am the one who was abandoned. That's why I never feel secure, no matter how much someone says they love me. These identities feel safe in a strange way. They're familiar, predictable. They give shape to our pain, as if by defining it, we can somehow control it. But they also become cages, locking us into roles we never chose consciously, roles we repeat again and again. Because here's the subtle truth. The more you identify with a story from the past, the more you unknowingly recreate it. Your mind, fixated on the pain, begins to seek it out. Your choices, shaped by fear, lead you into situations that echo the old wounds. The betrayal happens again. The abandonment feels inevitable. The failure repeats itself. And with each repetition, the story feels more solid, more real, as if life itself is conspiring to prove it true. But what if it isn't life? What if it's you, not by blame, but by misunderstanding, who has been feeding this cycle all along? Imagine for a moment setting the story down, not by forcing yourself to move on, not by covering the pain with affirmations, not by pretending it never mattered, but by seeing clearly the past has no existence here. It is not happening now. The only thing making it feel alive is the energy you give it, the meaning you assign, the belief you pour into it every time you revisit it. What happens when you stop feeding it? At first, it may feel uncomfortable, even disorienting. The identity you've carried for so long has been a shield, even if it also felt like a burden. Without it, there's a vast space, a space that feels like emptiness at first, because you're stepping outside of everything familiar. But as the stillness grows, you begin to notice something extraordinary. Beneath the stories, beneath the replayed scenes and emotional loops, there is a presence untouched by it all. A quiet awareness that was never hurt, never betrayed, never broken. This is not a concept, it is something you begin to feel. It may come in moments, a sudden lightness, a sense of clarity, where before there was only confusion. Or it may arrive slowly as you notice the grip of old emotions beginning to loosen, the sting of certain memories fading, not because they were forced away, but because they no longer have anything to anchor to. And as this begins to unfold, a new realization takes root. If I am not my past, then who am I? If the things I thought defined me are just stories, flexible, malleable illusions I fed with attention, what remains when I stop feeding them? The mind will try to rush in with answers. It will try to grasp for a new identity, another label to cling to. But the truth cannot be found in a label. It can only be experienced in the space that opens up when the old stories fade. In that space, something begins to emerge that feels entirely different from the person you thought you were. It is steady, calm, unshaken by what came before. It does not carry wounds. It does not need to prove or protect. It simply is, quietly alive, effortlessly free. And this is where the undoing begins. Not by erasing the past, not by rewriting it with new, prettier words, but by finally realizing that the past, as you've held it, was never as solid as you believed. It has only ever lived here in your awareness in the present moment, taking form only when you invite it in. The question is, will you keep inviting it? Or will you let it dissolve and see what waits in the silence that follows? Because in that silence, life feels different. The future no longer feels like a prison built by yesterday. The present no longer feels weighed down by echoes. And for the first time, perhaps, you glimpse the possibility that freedom is not something you earn or reach someday. It is something you uncover right now, the moment you stop giving power to the things that no longer exist. This is where we truly begin. It is strange, isn't it? Even when the past feels heavy, even when it exhausts us, we keep carrying it. We carry it into our mornings before the day has even begun, into our conversations when no one else can see it, into the quiet hours at night when the world is still and our thoughts echo the loudest. We replay the same scenes, trace the same steps, asking ourselves why. Why did they leave? Why did I make that choice? Why did that moment happen at all? It isn't just memory. It's something deeper, a loop we can't seem to break. But why do we do this? Why does the mind keep turning back even when it hurts? It's not because we crave suffering. It's not because we want to be stuck. It's because somewhere inside we have been convinced, often without realizing it, that the past is protecting us, not freeing us, not making us whole, but protecting us. Every hurt we carry, every memory we can't seem to let go of, has been turned into a shield. That betrayal became a reason to build walls so high no one could climb them. That failure became a warning to shrink back, to avoid the risks that might lead us there again. That loss became a quiet vow to never attach too deeply, to never let love in so completely that it could be torn away. We call these lessons. We tell ourselves, I learned. I'll never let that happen again. But underneath, what we've really learned is to hold the pain close, as proof, as armor, as justification for why we move the way we do. And because we keep holding it, we also keep it alive. Every time you remember that betrayal, not just as an event, but as a reason to distrust, you breathe life into it. Every time you recall that failure, not just as a thing that happened, but as a warning, you keep it pulsing in your present. Every time you revisit that moment of loss, telling yourself it's why you can't let anyone in, You keep the wound fresh, as if it just happened yesterday. And the more alive it feels, the more real it becomes. The cycle feeds itself. This is why it can feel as if the past is chasing you. But it isn't. It can't. It has no form, no breath, no presence on its own. The only reason it feels so heavy is because you are carrying it, protecting yourself with it, defining yourself by it, and unknowingly weaving it into everything you do. Look closely and you'll see it everywhere. And how you speak to others. And how quickly you guard yourself or lash out or retreat, even when nothing in the present moment justifies it. And how you see people not as they are, but as echoes, reminders of someone else, some other time, some other wound. Perhaps someone says something simple, a passing comment, and it cuts deeper than it should. Not because of what they said, but because of the memories it stirs. Perhaps someone takes a little longer than usual to reply, and before you know it, your chest tightens. The old story plays again. They're leaving, and not enough. It's happening again. And so, even without realizing it, you respond, not to them, not to this moment, but to the shadows of what came before. In this way, the past doesn't just linger in your mind. It begins to paint over everything. It colors how you see the world, how you move through it, how you think about yourself. And perhaps this is why, no matter how many changes we try to make, new relationships, new jobs, new cities, new habits, we often find ourselves in the same patterns. The faces change, the settings change, but the emotions, the cycles, the pain somehow remain the same. It's not because life is conspiring against you. It's not because you're cursed or destined to repeat the same lessons forever. It's because the past feels alive, and as long as it feels alive, it will keep shaping how you live. But here's the truth. The past isn't alive. Not really. It only has the breath you give it. It only moves because you keep pulling it into now. And when you begin to see this, everything starts to shift. Not in one instant, not always. But gradually, like a fog lifting, like a weight loosening its grip. It starts with awareness. You notice the memory rise like it always does, pulling your emotions with it. But this time you pause. You feel the pull, the familiar tightening, the old story whispering in your ear. And something in you recognizes it for what it is. A thought. Not the present, not reality. Just a thought. At first, the pull might still win. The old grooves run deep, and your mind will want to wander down them. But each time you recognize the pattern, each time you see it for what it is and choose not to follow, its grip weakens. Slowly, the charge begins to fade. The story that felt so solid begins to unravel, not because you forced it away, but because you stopped feeding it. And as this happens, something unexpected emerges. You begin to feel the present moment in a way you may not have for years. Colors seem brighter, as if the world itself had been muted before. Sounds carry more depth. Conversations feel more alive, as if the people around you are finally being seen as they are, not as projections of your wounds. And deeper still, beneath the softening of the past, there is a presence. A quiet awareness that feels steady, unshaken. It doesn't carry the scars. It doesn't need the armor. It doesn't keep score of what was lost or done. It simply is. Always here, whether or not you've noticed it. And when you touch this space, even for a moment, the hold of the past begins to break. You realize something that feels almost impossible at first. The pain, the stories, the identities, none of them were truly you. You were never the betrayal. You were never the failure. You were never the loss. You are what remains when those stories fade. And the more you let yourself rest here, in this quiet awareness, the more the past dissolves on its own. Not erased, not rewritten, but simply seen for what it is, a ghost, only alive when you call it. This is where freedom begins, not in fighting to change the past, not in forcing yourself to let go as if by willpower, but by gently seeing the truth. It isn't here. It never was, except when you carried it. And now, as you begin to put it down, you can feel something stirring. A lightness, a sense of space, a life that no longer feels chained to echoes. For the first time, you can sense it. The possibility that the present doesn't have to be a repetition of yesterday. The possibility that who you are has nothing to do with who you thought you were. The possibility that peace was never somewhere far away. It was always here, waiting for you to notice. Something begins to change when the weight of the past starts to loosen. At first, it feels subtle, a lightness you can't quite name, a pause between the thoughts that used to run endlessly, a space opening where the old story would normally rush in. It is not dramatic. There is no sudden flash, no voice announcing that everything is now different. But something inside you knows the cycle is starting to break, and yet, as the shift begins, the mind resists. It is not because the mind wants to suffer, but because the past, even in its pain, has been familiar. It has been the foundation of the you you've known for so long. Without the story, without the old wounds, the old defenses, the old explanations, who are you? The mind scrambles to fill the silence. It whispers, but if I don't carry this, I'll be hurt again. If I let this go, I'll forget the lessons I learned. I'll make the same mistakes. I'll be defenseless. And beneath those whispers, there is something deeper. A quiet fear that without these stories, there may be nothing left. For so long, your identity has been built around what happened to you, what you survived, what you lost. The mind clings not just to avoid danger, but because it does not yet understand that who you truly are is not defined by any of it. This is where most people turn back. They feel the discomfort, the emptiness where the old story used to be, and they rush to fill it. They run back to the familiar pain because at least it feels like something. But if you allow yourself to stay, to sit in the quiet, to resist the urge to resurrect the past simply because silence feels strange, something extraordinary begins to reveal itself. At first, it feels like stillness, a presence without weight, a soft, steady awareness that doesn't cling to thoughts, doesn't chase memories, doesn't try to control what's next. This is not the self you've been taught to believe in. The one who was betrayed, the one who failed, the one who lost. This awareness has no scars, no timeline, no beginning or end. It was never touched by those events because it is not made of stories. It simply is. The more you rest in this awareness, the more the past seems to fade on its own. Not because you've let go in the way we retaught, not as a mental trick or a forced affirmation, but because you begin to see the truth. The past is nothing more than thought. It rises, it fades, and without your belief, it dissolves. And as the weight falls away, life itself begins to feel different. The present moment, which used to feel small, just a bridge between yesterday and tomorrow, begins to feel alive, vivid, expansive. The world seems sharper, more real. Sounds and colors carry a depth you had forgotten they could hold. Conversations feel less like exchanges of words and more like moments of true connection. Even the people around you seem different. Where before you saw them through a haze of expectation and fear, through the projections of your old wounds, now you see them more clearly, not as threats, not as saviors, not as pieces in the story of your pain, just as they are here now. And in that clarity, something softer arises, a natural sense of compassion. Not forced, not because you tell yourself you should forgive, but because, without the lens of the past, you realize that everyone is moving through life carrying their own stories, their own echoes, their own armor. And just as your pain was never truly you, theirs is not truly them. This recognition does not make you weak. It does not make you naive. It makes you free, because now, without the constant pull of yesterday, you can meet life as it is, not as your wounds predict it will be. You can respond instead of react. You can choose instead of repeat. And perhaps for the first time, you begin to feel something that had been buried for years beneath the noise, a quiet, natural peace. Not the fleeting kind that comes when circumstances line up just right, not the fragile kind that can be broken by a single word or look, but a steady peace that doesn't depend on anything outside of you. It is not something you find. It is something you uncover because it was always there, hidden beneath the layers of memory and belief. This peace is not passive. It is not the absence of feeling or caring. In fact, it allows you to feel more deeply than ever before because you are no longer afraid of being broken by your feelings. You are no longer guarding against life itself. You are simply present, awake, open, and as this awareness deepens, the fear of the past returning begins to fade too, because you start to see that the only way the past could ever return is through your thoughts, through your choice, conscious or not, to breathe life into it again. And now, you do not have to. This is the space where life feels like it is finally beginning, perhaps for the first time. Not because everything is perfect, but because for once you are not carrying the weight of what came before. Here, in this openness, a new question begins to arise, not from fear, not from desperation, but from genuine curiosity. If I am not the past, if I am not the roles and stories I carried for so long, then what am I here to experience now? What would life feel like if I truly let myself live in this moment unbound? The answer is not one the mind can hold. It cannot be reduced to a single insight or a clever phrase. It is something you feel as life begins to move through you without the filters, without the weight, without the need to define or control. And as you step into this space, you realize something profound. This freedom, this peace, this deep presence, it was never something to reach. It was never waiting in some far-off future. It was always here. It only seemed hidden because the past was so loud. Now, in the quiet, it can finally be felt. As the weight of the past gradually fades, something truly remarkable begins to emerge within you. It is not a sudden, blinding burst of joy or victory. It is not a dramatic, overwhelming rush of emotion. Instead, it is a quiet and steady awakening, a soft unfolding of awareness that begins to reshape the very way you experience life. You start to notice how life, in its simplest moments, feels fuller, richer, and more alive than before. Each breath you take seems to carry more space. Each moment unfolds with a subtle vibrancy, as if the present itself had been waiting for you to arrive, waiting patiently through all the noise of your old stories and endless mental replay. There is a deep stillness beneath everything now, a stillness that does not demand your attention or control, a stillness that remains unshaken even when the world moves around you in its usual chaos. This stillness does not require effort to sustain it. It is there naturally, effortlessly, whenever you allow yourself to stop reaching for the past or future to define your worth or your peace. The mind, as always, will still stir. It will still attempt to rise, pulling up memories, whispers of old pain, echoes of familiar stories that once defined you so completely. But now, when these thoughts come, they feel different. Instead of dragging you into old emotional whirlpools, they appear like passing clouds in a vast open sky. You recognize them for what they truly are, transient and substantial, not the reality of who you are right now. Without your investment of energy and belief, they fade away almost as soon as they arrive. In this space of clarity, a profound realization dawns upon you. Freedom was never about erasing or rewriting the past. It was never about building a new identity or chasing an ideal version of yourself. Instead, freedom is about remembering that the essence of who you are has never been touched, harmed, or defined by any of those stories. This presence, this awareness that now cradles you, has been here all along, through every joy and every pain, through every loss and every triumph, through every moment you thought defined you. It remained untouched and whole. And as you allow yourself to rest more deeply in this presence, a new truth unfolds. The past no longer carries the weight it once did. The events, the memories, the old stories, you may still recall them, but they no longer have the power to bind or define you. They become like images projected onto a distant screen, hollow and weightless, no longer the chains that dictated your every step and choice. What fills the space that the past once occupied is something beyond words, a sense of peace so deep it humbles you, a peace that does not depend on conditions or outcomes, a trust so vast in the unfolding of life that even uncertainty no longer breeds fear, a gentle softness toward yourself and others that arises naturally, because without the armor of old wounds, there is no need to defend or attack. This peace is not a fragile mask you put on, nor a temporary escape from discomfort. It is a foundational shift in how you relate to everything, a transformation so subtle and vast at once that it feels like a rebirth. The mind, of course, may still present moments of doubt or fear. Old patterns may try to pull you back into familiar narratives, but these moments no longer hold the same power. You meet them with a quiet strength, a compassionate awareness that says, I see you, but you do not control me. In this way, you begin to see life with fresh eyes. The present moment, which may once have felt like a narrow bridge between past regrets and future anxieties, now expands into a vast, open field of possibility. The world around you pulses with life, every sound, every color, every face reveals layers of meaning and connection that you might have overlooked before. People once filtered through the lens of your own pain, and projection now emerge as they truly are, complex, imperfect, beautiful beings, each carrying their own stories and shadows. Without the weight of your own wounds blurring the view, you meet them with genuine openness and compassion. You no longer react from fear or defense, but respond with presence and kindness. This openness does not diminish your strength. It enhances it. You are no longer trapped in cycles of reaction and repetition. You are free to choose how to engage, how to love, how to live. And beneath all of this, a still deeper current begins to flow. A quiet, steady peace that neither depends on circumstances nor fades when challenges arise. This peace, like a calm ocean beneath stormy skies, remains unshaken no matter what surfaces on the surface of your experience. It is not something to be chased or attained. It is something to be uncovered, a hidden treasure beneath the layers of belief and memory, always present, waiting for you to turn your attention away from the past and into the here and now. This piece is alive with presence. It carries no conditions or expectations. It simply is. As this truth sinks in, you may begin to realize how much of your life was once lived in shadow, not because you were broken or flawed, but because the stories you carried obscured the light beneath. Now, as those stories dissolve, the light within you can shine freely. You begin to notice the little things. The warmth of sunlight on your skin feels more vibrant. The laughter of a friend sounds clearer and more joyous. The taste of your morning coffee carries richness that seems new. Life itself feels more alive, more textured, more miraculous. And in this awakening, the question that once haunted you, who am I without my past, no longer feels like a void. Instead, it opens to possibility. You understand that you are not the sum of your history. You are the presence that witnesses it. You are the awareness that watches the stories come and go, without clinging, without fear, without the need to define or control. This presence is vast, unbroken, and free. And when you live from this space, something miraculous happens. Your relationships transform. Your work takes on new meaning. Your challenges become invitations for growth, not signs of defeat. You no longer need to carry the past as a burden or a shield. You walk forward lightly, with a heart open to whatever comes. There is a profound beauty in this freedom, not because life is perfect, but because you are no longer bound by what once was. This is the great unveiling, the final letting go, the deep peace that passes understanding. And as you rest here in this vast openness, you feel a quiet gratitude, not for the past, but for the awakening to what was always true. You realize that every step of the journey, every wound, every moment of pain led you here, to a place where the past no longer holds you hostage, where the present moment is a gateway, not a prison, where your true self shines beyond every story you once believed. This is the end of the old story, and the beginning of a new way of being, unshackled, awake, alive, free. You are no longer defined by what you have been. You are invited now to live fully as who you are, right here, right now. And with this realization, you step forward into life, not carrying chains, but wings.